Okay, this is HAL Meier, and we're providing information on a program called Off the Beaten Track. This is the last in a series that we're giving on the Mayan calendar and the events which are to go along with it. It's not because there isn't more to say, it's just that there is so much more that could be offered in this particular format that we're probably going to have to just go on and discuss those other issues one at a time, but without particular reference to the Mayan calendar. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of other prophecies and predictions that have been made, many of them in the scriptures, and I have deliberately avoided talking very much about those many other kinds of issues, in part because so many other people have talked about it and have done so by giving all kinds of fanciful dates and times and have in general ruined the conversation. On the other hand, that doesn't mean it isn't worthwhile mentioning or that these things need not be discussed. For example, in Luke 21, 25 to 36, it reads as follows, and this will sound a lot like the prophecies and predictions you've already heard in this place. It says there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. People will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world, for the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing nigh. Luke continues. He told them this parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they sprout their leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is near. Even so, when you see these things happening, you know that the kingdom of God is near. Luke continues. Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and anxieties of life, and that day will close on you suddenly like a trap. For it will come on all those who live on the face of the whole earth. But always on the watch, be always on the watch, and pray that ye may be able to escape all that is about to happen, and that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man. Just in case you want to read it for yourself, Luke 21, 25 to 36. Well, that is only one of many references like that in scriptures. And so it's appropriate that we start with this kind of a story, a prediction, if you will, because we're now going to go on to talk about the things that can occur. What about the physical changes which are threatened to come upon the earth and humanity in the years ahead? Well, let's begin to put them down. Excuse me. All right. What is the possible cause of these things? The thing that we say, well, I think I know it's going to happen. I just don't know when and how it can occur. And the people who write about this write about something called pole shift. Well, you mean the shifting of the poles, like as in the North Pole becomes the South Pole and so forth, or they move around a little bit, and the North Pole, instead of being where it is, turns out, in fact, to be located over Russia or some other place. No, that's not what is meant. What is meant by pole shift is that there is that's the Earth, just in case you had any doubt about it. And this is the core of the Earth. What these people say is that these two bodies, the core and the crust, are moving at different speeds. Well, and this crust is only 10 or 20 or 50 miles deep or wide, and the core takes up, along with the mantle, takes up the rest of the Earth. If they are moving at different speeds, there is certainly a lot of friction which is set up, and it looks like it is especially, it seems to be at the moment, at the poles. There is a lot of ice melting at both extremes of the Earth. Especially is it visible and obvious in Antarctica. People who go to Antarctica will tell you that the water is already hot practically. It's 50 degrees or 60 degrees temperature, and the water is melting quickly. It seems to be less obvious at the North Pole, but it is not. But it is also happening. Thus there is a pole shift, and this is going to lead to melting ice. It will lead to ocean temps rising, and this will be, it is already obvious that this is happening. And it will continue to happen and get much worse. Now, I'm not talking about climate change. I don't want to get into an argument about whether climate change is happening or not. But in any case, it would appear to be a whole lot less of a problem than the problem of pole shift were that to occur. If there is pole shift, what are the things that will happen? Well, one of the things that will happen are going to be volcanoes. There are more volcanoes under the oceans than there are above them. So this is a tremendous change that is coming about. Along these volcanoes occurring around the Ring of Fire, but all over the world, actually. And when they occur, what else comes with them? Ash, volcanic dust coming, spewing out over the entire atmosphere of our planet. Well, what else might occur? Well, the other thing that might occur are earthquakes. Well, and I'm not talking about a little bit of an earthquake. The people who talk about this, of course, are never as satisfied with telling you that there's going to be a little earthquake. They seem to be all prepared to tell you there's going to be a really big one. And it's going to start on the West Coast, as you would guess, but very quickly also be found in New Madrid, Missouri, and lots of places throughout the world. Hurricanes, tornadoes, cyclones. These shifts in the crust eventually, and this is so widespread that it is also difficult to describe when it begins and ends. The people who talk about pole shift then begin soon to talk about safety lands. Is there any place you can go where that will not be upended by that kind of catastrophe? Well, what about the timing? Okay? It's going to be a gradual event. It happens perhaps slowly. Perhaps it takes 10 or 15 or 20 years for something like this to become really widespread. And during that period of time, many things can happen. Well, let me just describe to you something that one of the writers has said about this series of events. And I want to read this. You will find that this is a time in which there will be a shift from one consciousness to another, from one cosmic location to another. And as you see this time, a time that many will deem chaotic, it is a time that is ending. Specifically, there will be an alignment in the heavens of certain planets in the solar system. The configuration will be such that the world you live upon will begin to feel gyrations and vibrations, and disturbances will go through the crust itself. Leading up to this point, there are already circumstances taking place upon the planet. The core is spinning at a different speed than the crust. The poles are wobbling and they are wandering. The equator is expanding and contracting. The stabilizing influences of the ice fields at the poles of the planet are now shrinking and reducing their stabilizing influence. The oceans are heating up, terribly so, and beneath the seas there are more volcanoes than there are above, and some of them are spewing lava at great rates even now. The atmosphere of the planet is changing as well, and this hastens the heating up of the oceans. So that tends to summarize what has been said by a great many people. This happens to be the writer Douglas James Cottrell. How would that occur? What could make this happen, and when? Well, I did have a friend, perhaps a relative, one day, who, when I described pole shift to him, he said, no, can't be. Not possible. So why is that? So, well, actually, because the Earth is not completely round. It is flatter at the top and the bottom, and there is a bulge around the middle, and it doesn't appear to be much, but it is plenty to make sure that the stability of the stability of the Earth. It's not going to happen. This momentum prevents anything like that from occurring. Well, later on in the conversation, it became clear that was true as long as the Earth was not a perfect circle. But if the ice field at the top and the ice field at the bottom were both melting rapidly, there would be a rebound phenomenon, we expect. The Earth would then become more rounded, and as it became more rounded, the momentum would change, and it's possible that this, in fact, could occur. Do I know that? No. I don't know that that's going to happen, but it's a theoretical idea that seems to me worthwhile talking about. Well, that is certainly a possibility. What else? How else does he put it? He says, understand that this point that you would call pivotal has not been reached yet. there is an opportunity first for the world to maintain some equilibrium. The minds and hearts of these people upon the planet are basically what you would call the rudder of the ship. The wheel has not been turned yet. As long as there is the same course, then you would find that within that of the second to the fifth year from this point in time, this is in 2011, 2 to 5 years later, you would know there would be these changes begin to come about. So that sounds like that's not that awfully far away. But these would not come all at once or simultaneous. Rather, look to that of Mount Vesuvius and Etna. So if you want a clue, if you want a timing, watch for the time when Mount Etna and Vesuvius, and I just have to write it out for you, Etna and Vesuvius. Etna is, of course, in Sicily, and Vesuvius is on the boot of Italy. When those things begin to spew lava simultaneously, then you will know that there is something to worry about. You will see the quickening of the beginning of quakes and shakes and disturbances. These will affect the coastlines of North and South America. They will affect that of the Orient, and Japan even more so. They will affect that of the European countries, in which there would be the rising up of certain levels of the ocean, and the shorelines will be slowly yet steadily inundated irreparably with flooding. Africa too, you see. So here is another clue as to the possible outcomes of this condition. What else? Water, air, acid rain,